Hey guys, welcome back to the Gloria Living channel. Today we are talking about something awesome, and that is how you can start growing some of your own food no matter where you live right now. An apartment, in a rental house like us, whether you have a little bit of land, whatever it is, you can grow your own food in small spaces. I want to talk to you about it today and show you how to get started in a cheap and easy way. Okay guys, let's go check it out. I love to garden. I love to grow some of our own food. There's a bunch of reasons why I love to do that, knowing where our food came from, knowing how it's been grown, and something that I just think is a little bit more sustainable for our world. But here I am in a rental house, which does not have a lot of space for gardening, but I love to grow food. Now, we are blessed to have another spot somewhere totally apart from where we live to have a huge garden. But not everybody has that. And I also still like to grow food here, right where we are. And I'm gonna show you what we have decided to do that has been cheap and easy. Growing in buckets. Guys, pots can be expensive. You go to the store and you wanna get like a terracotta pot, it's gonna cost you a pretty penny. But buckets, even food grade buckets, can either be free or extremely cheap to grow in. We have tons of buckets on our patio here, and we're even growing fruit trees right here. Now they're getting dormant here because of the fall, but we've got peas over here. We've even got some carrots in a bucket and some beets. We have some blueberry bushes, and I've got tons more over on the side of the house, all being grown in buckets. We grew tomatoes over the summer. There's so much that you can do. Tomatoes, peppers, lots of things that will be very happy in a bucket that you can grow. And if you're a new gardener, it's great to start small in that way. And even if you have some experience, but you've downsized or you don't have a lot of space, this is a really doable way. And I'm gonna tell you that this is actually a lot of beneficial things of growing in a bucket. I'm gonna tell you how to do it. I'm gonna give you some tips to growing in a bucket and give you a few tips of how you can, different ways you can do that with different types of spaces. Okay, so where do you find cheap buckets or even free buckets? Well, there's a few different ways you can go about this. I'm going to show you 3 different buckets that we're going to be growing in here. Actually, we have 4 here. One I had to pay for full cost. Others I had to pay either really cheap or got them for totally free. So the first one I'll show you is just one of these types of buckets. It's got a hook on it. It holds on. It's something you might get a fern in. In fact, there were ferns in here. We had a neighbor. They had ferns. They were dying. They threw them away. We found these on the side of the road. We're gonna, you clean them out, take out whatever you don't want in them, and you can replant in here. This is gonna be great for growing herbs in. That's what I'm planning on doing with them. We have a little mini greenhouse we put on the side of the house that we're gonna try and put these in and hopefully get some beautiful herbs in them. That'll be great. Next bucket I'm gonna show you is our 5-gallon bucket. This is food grade, and we have some 2-gallon buckets behind us. Here is a 2-gallon bucket. It's much smaller than the 5-gallon, as you can see, and these are easy to obtain. Guys, if you have anywhere around you that has a bakery, whether it is a Walmart, Dunkin' Donuts, anywhere like that, they're gonna have buckets that have frosting that come in them. And also pickles, any type of pickle buckets. You have a Chick-fil-A, a McAllister's, Panera, whatever, that has pickles, they're most likely going to have big, huge buckets of pickles. So you can go into restaurants and say, hey, do you have any 5-gallon buckets that you're throwing away? And a lot of times those people are very willing to just give them to you for free. If you go into Walmart, they will sell them to you for $1. Guys, a 5-gallon bucket for $1 with a lid is incredibly cheap. Food grade. Very, very cheap. If you go into Lowe's or Home Depot or a big box store, whatever, and you're gonna go get a 5-gallon bucket that's not even food grade, you're gonna pay like $5 at least. So this is a really, really good deal, and it's so easy. Most people live somewhat close to a Walmart, very cheap. I've gone in one time and they had like 40 buckets available, okay, into a Walmart. So that to me has been the cheapest way of getting buckets for growing in. You always want to make sure that they're food grade, so they're safe, so there wasn't anything that wasn't food in it. You don't want to accidentally get a bucket that had some nasty chemical in it. You do not want to do that. And you want to just make sure that it's safe for having food contents in it. So once again, a place that has frosting, pickles, and when you get them home, immediately clean them, because otherwise you're gonna have a sticky, moldy mess on your hands. Okay guys, well there are pros and cons, of course, to growing in buckets, but you just need to kind of have a few tips on hand to know how to have a successful growing experience in a bucket. So number one, once you get your bucket, you make sure it's food grade, like we said, and then also you're going to want to drill your holes into your bucket. These are probably 1/2 inch holes. You could drill 1/4 inch holes. You don't want a ton. I wouldn't put any more than 5. I have big holes drilled in our 5-gallon buckets and smaller holes in our 2-gallon buckets. We don't want them drying out too fast. We also don't want them sitting in water so much that the roots rot. Have a happy balance of just being able to get that water to drain out some, but also not dry out too fast. Always when you get home, put your drill holes in them before you put any dirt in them. That way the water doesn't get totally stuck in the bucket. Okay, I'm gonna give you 3 tips for growing successfully in buckets. Here we go. Tip number 1 is choosing the right bucket. Like I said, guys, you can get 5-gallon buckets, you can get 2-gallon, even smaller size pots, buckets, and collect them from all over that you get, whether it's a milk jug, whether it's one of these buckets. You can be so creative with them. But not every plant is going to like so small of a pot. You can grow basil on just about anything and get some type of basil to eat, but that is not the case with everything. Tomatoes need a bigger pot to grow in. I wouldn't put a tomato any less than probably a 5-gallon bucket. You don't want to stunt the growth and set it back. 5-gallon buckets are probably really perfect for the tomatoes. We have peas growing behind us. Those we have in 2 gallons. And right now we have very small blueberry bushes. Those are in 2 gallons. I've put fruit trees, these guys started off in 5-gallon buckets, okay? Not for super long, but enough in order to get 10-gallon buckets. And we'll keep growing until hopefully we can buy land and plant these into the ground. That's the long-term plan. But for now, we wanted to get them started and give them time to grow before we get them into the ground. So you want to choose your right size bucket, and that is one of the super important things of growing in a bucket. This is information that's easy to get online. When you're growing whatever plant you want to grow, just look up how much room it likes, okay? Now, just because it says it needs 18 inches in between the plants does not mean you need an 18-inch bucket. You can go smaller. It might be less prolific than if it was in the ground, but you will be getting something, and that's better than nothing. Tip number 2, you have got to water your plants. Without watering your plants, they are going to dry up fast and they will not do well. In the ground, they're going to stay more wet, like I was saying, than in the buckets dry out. So you have to have a good routine of remembering to come out and water your bucket. The great thing about buckets is that since they're small, you can put them anywhere. The bad thing about buckets, they dry out. So always remember to water regularly. Have a routine, whether that's every day or every couple days, depending on how hot it is outside, you're going to want to water your plants. And remember, in the summertime, when you're growing things like tomatoes that are more apt to being taken over by diseases, you're going to want to do that in the morning and not in the evening, and try not to get those leaves wet. My last tip on how to grow successfully in a pot or a bucket is going to be to remember to fertilize. Guys, you're going to need to fertilize your plants because they're not in the ground. In the ground, a plant can suck more nutrients out. There's more available and there's more organic matter just in the ground. It's just not that way in a pot. They can use it all up, and then once they've used it, there's nothing else adding to it because it's kind of its own little like ecosystem right here. So you're going to need to fertilize. Now that's going to depend on the season, that's going to depend on the plant, but you're going to want to fertilize your plants and get a good whatever type of fertilizer you like to use. I have been using this. It's an organic fertilizer, and you can make fertilizer tea. You soak this in a gallon of water overnight, and then you water your plants with it. All the instructions come with it. Some people will fertilize with different types of manure, or even just like rabbit manure is one of the best ones you can use. And just whatever's going to work for you and whatever's easy, but you're going to want to add fertilizer of some sort into your pots because, like I said, once they run out, that's it. And then they won't have what they need in order to continue to grow successfully. So those are some of the tips that I would recommend in order to grow successfully in a pot. So remember, guys, you want to grab the right type of size of pot, water them regularly, and fertilize them. If you do those 3 things, you're going to have great success with growing your food anywhere. There are tons of pros and cons to growing in buckets. Some of those positives include you get to choose whatever soil you want, so you can give your plants a really great soil. You don't have to rely on whatever you have in the ground. I live in East Tennessee, tons and tons of clay. In order to grow successfully in the ground, I mean, you can do it in the clay, you can, but it does make it a little bit harder, and you might have to amend that soil and work for that soil to get it better and better every year. So growing in buckets allows me to choose whatever type of soil, whatever type of ratios I want in my pots. Not all of these are the same. Some have different needs than others. My blueberries need a very sour soil, so they have something different than the rest of my plants do. And that gives me the freedom to do that easily with my buckets and give them exactly what they want and need in order to thrive. Another benefit is that you can get a pot from almost anything, whether you want to make that from a gallon of milk, an old cookie container, or one of these buckets. You can do that, and it's very, very simple, very easy. You could do it for free or do it for cheap, and so it's something that anybody in any budget can do. And getting seeds are really cheap. You can pay a few bucks at the store for some seeds and start growing really, really fast. And so the only downside, obviously, you have to fill these buckets with the dirt, but if you had a really good soil in your local area, I grew up in upstate New York, has beautiful, beautiful topsoil up there. You could just go outside and dig the dirt out of, out of the ground and put it in your bucket. But this is a great, great way of growing in small spaces, and that's one of the benefits. If you live in an apartment and you had a window or a balcony window, you could hang some of these out of your window, or even put them on a windowsill, and that would, like some of the smaller ones with the hooks, that would be perfect. And then you can start growing. And especially if you someday dream of having more responsibility with more land and more space, learning how to take care of small things in buckets now is a great stepping stone to really knowing whether you can handle that responsibility of a larger garden, and gives you that time to build those skills and learn exactly what your plants want and need in order to thrive. Guys, growing in buckets allows anybody anywhere to be able to grow some of their own food where they live. And I think that is something that is really precious and really important. And even just on this patio right here, we have about 7 fruit trees, 2 raspberry bushes, a grapevine, 5 buckets of peas, and a bucket over here that has some carrots and beets in it. That's just on our patio, and it's doable for you too. And on the side of our house, we have 20 blueberry bushes in buckets growing and starting so that they can get larger in this waiting period before we can, Lord willing, afford some land and a house. So, I think this is so good for everybody to get their feet wet, even if you can just grow something small like herbs in a small pot, just to learn how to take care of something and to be able to. There's nothing like it to be able to take some of the food you've grown, to look at your dinner and to know this is seasoned with something that I grew. This is made with something I grew. We do that at our table, but we also talk about the future and we think, I cannot wait, Lord willing, until someday we look at our plate and then meat was something we raised and the food from the vegetables were something we grew in our garden. It sounds like a dream to us, but to even do that on a small scale is so much fun. Our kids absolutely love it. We enjoy it, and it's just a beautiful thing to watch and to work your hands in the dirt. And so guys, I just really think that growing in buckets really branches out and gives people, wherever they are, apartment, renting, house, wherever, that they don't have a lot of room, to be able to step into that and do that even on a really smaller scale. But as you can see, even with a small spot, and I could do a ton more even with this spot, I still have a ton growing here. I wanted to share that with you guys so that you can see how you can also do this even with a small space. And it can seem frustrating sometimes to not have land, but even with that, if you want to grow and garden, but even without that, you can still do a little bit. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. If you have not already, please subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to support what we're doing here in making this content for you. Please like the video, please share it with your friends. That's just the best way to support us in making this type of content. Thank you guys so much once again for watching, and until next time, we'll see you soon.